All right, we're gonna get started. I know there's still some people trickling in, but we appreciate you guys joining us today. My name is Jeremy Waldrop. I am President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership. For those of you who I don't know, I'd like to thank you for joining us for the third quarter 2025 State of Downtown Pittsburgh discussion, focusing on the commercial office market, arguably the most important market here in downtown Pittsburgh. I'm joined by my colleagues, Aaron Sukanet, he's Vice President of District Development here at the PDP, and Kate Urban, our Senior Director of Economic Development. We also have some featured speakers joining us today who recently made decisions to move in or continue here in downtown Pittsburgh by signing new leases with their firm. So we wanted to get their perspectives. Since today's program is being held as a webinar, we're asking that you submit questions through the chat, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. First, I wanted to just touch on kind of the why for us as an organization. Why are we doing this? What do we care about? Last summer, many of you may have participated in our efforts to create a new strategic vision for our organization. We've been a leader in downtown for over 30 years, and it's one of the things that is super important to us is hearing from you guys about the work that we have underway, what we should be doing more of, what we should be doing less of, and kind of your thoughts on the effectiveness of the work that we're leading. We held listening tours. We talked to over 100 downtown stakeholders. We engaged organizations like the Allegheny Conference, the city, the county, other partner organizations like the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, in discussions about what they're up to and really trying to find complementary routes for our organization. And we came away with this with kind of three strategic tiers for our organization. Our core work, which is delivering well-maintained public spaces, hospitality to our visitors that are coming into downtown Pittsburgh, and then outreach services to our unhoused and individuals in need, with the goal of creating a clean and safe environment for all. This is kind of a starting point for us organizationally. It's work that we know will never be completed. It's work that we're always going to strive towards, but hopefully you see the men and women from our team on our streets providing supplemental sanitation services and hospitality services 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Second is our activation work. We want to create memorable experiences for folks, whether that be a girl and a guitar in PPG Plaza or a big event like Light Up Night or Picklesburg. We want to create places for people to be a part of, to create community, and to come into downtown and support our businesses, our retailers, our restaurants that are down here. And the last kind of component, which really ties into this work here today and the discussion that we want to have today, is really what is the economic growth strategy for downtown Pittsburgh? How do we use data, which we're going to be providing to you quite a bit of today, to inform discussions with individual businesses, with property owners and developers, with corporate leaders, and with government, philanthropic, potential investors in this work to ensure that downtown is a resilient and vibrant place that makes sense for people to continue their investment in. Today's discussion, again, was going to focus in on this economic growth perspective, ensuring that we are working to diversify our economy. You've likely heard and seen, downtown Pittsburgh is one of the least diverse places from a use perspective, just given our predominant history of being a strong commercial office market. Given work from home policies, remote work, telecommuting, and just the change in preferences of what types of buildings people want, we know that there are many buildings like the one that I am joining you from today, the Bank Tower over on 4th Avenue and Wood Street, that probably do not need to be commercial office any longer. How do we work to reposition these buildings and rethink their uses are a big part of the discussion that we're having today. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Aaron Sukanek. He's going to discuss more of the why, and then introduce Kate Urban, who's going to talk through some of the data. But again, thank you for joining us, and please don't forget to use that chat feature.
Thanks, Jeremy. So yeah, in late January at our Q1 State of Downtown, we went through the math on our current residential, office, and retail square footage downtown, or the live, work, and play pieces as shown here, and discussed how market indicators inform what an optimal portfolio mix would be. Specific to the office market, the highlights of our analysis were that lease renewals and relocations within downtown are happening at 60 to 70% of their previous square footage. So unless there are new large anchor tenants coming into the market, 30 to 40% of office space could be vacant within the next decade. And with the flight to quality Class A office leasing trend, future vacant office space would be primarily Class B and C, which are generally older buildings, easier to convert to residential potentially. So therefore, around 35% of our office square footage, which would be 8.2 million square feet, should be converted to other non-office uses, including residential, to arrive at that optimal balance. Seen here are the pie charts with the current downtown commercial real estate portfolio mix on the left and an optimal mix on the right. Our analysis for optimal balance included office to residential conversion feasibility and found that 7.9 million square feet of downtown's 12.8 million square feet of Class B and C could be converted to residential. And that would bring our residential population from 7,000 to as many as 19,000. This math informed our strategic plan success measures of doubling the amount of residential square footage in downtown Pittsburgh and increasing the population to 15,000 in the next decade. And in our strategic plan, the specific goals included engaging office tenants to encourage lease renewals, or more broadly, just to stay downtown, and supporting recruitment of non-traditional office users for existing office space. We'll circle back on some of that towards the end of this presentation. But today we'll really dive deeper into the state of our office market, seeking to answer questions like, is downtown's office occupancy trending as predicted? And is reinvesting in or repositioning office properties working for those who have? And which industry sectors are most actively leasing and clustering downtown? So with that, I'll hand it over to Kate Irvin.
Thanks, Aaron. So I'm going to kind of dive right into the office market. First, I wanted to start by orienting everyone to kind of where we're talking when we're talking about the office, kind of where these spaces are located. So on your screen, you'll see a map of the sort of CBD office market. And so it does extend a little bit beyond the boundaries of just the Golden Triangle, including some of the properties just into the Strip District and a little bit into Uptown. And that's the general boundary that most reports, both generated by us as well as other kind of partners, tend to include. So this slide really gives us that kind of quick overview of the CBD office market, specifically using CoStar data. So these numbers may differ slightly from some other reports, but the overall picture and trends remain consistent. Office inventory downtown has held steady since 2021, with only one new development, the 489,000 square foot F&B Financial Center, which was completed in Q4 of 2024. Vacancy in the CBD is currently around 18% overall, with availability close behind at 18.8%. And then over the past, net absorption has been negative, with about 511,000 square feet, reflecting continued tenant downsizing or relocating. And then asking average rents are about $28.26 per square foot, with a rent growth of about 2.7%. So we're going to dig into a little bit of what some of that means. So this slide is showing quarterly net absorption tracked in orange, net deliveries in blue, and then the vacancy rate in green over the past decade in the CBD. So looking back at 2015 and 16, the market was at a high point. Large new deliveries, including the tower at PNC Plaza and Tower 260, were met with strong absorption, keeping vacancy relatively low and stable. Beginning in 2017, however, absorption became more inconsistent, with several quarters of negative absorption. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic is especially visible from 2020 onward, with sustained negative absorption, pushing vacancy steadily higher. So even with modest new deliveries during this period, vacancy climbed from around 10% in 2020 to nearly 19% today. And more recently, in the third quarter of 2025, which has really only just begun, we are seeing a small return to positive absorption. So it's too early to call this a trend reversal, but it does suggest that there's some demand in returning to the market, which is great news. Because otherwise, this is the trend analysts have been predicting for the last 4 years. So the data doesn't surprise us. It really shouldn't surprise anyone. So for those of you who recognize this is a shot from the movie Austin Powers. The man on the left is the security guard raising his arms, frantically screaming at a very slow moving steamroller heading towards him. Why am I showing you this? Because key takeaway is really that the downtown office market is trending as predicted. This is the trend we've been cautioning about and we've seen coming for years. The square footage losses are playing out in real time. So just like the security guy in the previous slide, this path has been slow moving. Everyone's seen it coming and in theory has had time to act accordingly. The rise in vacancy and sustained negative absorption reflect long-term shifts, not just short-term market noise. We're watching the result of years of delayed return to office, right sizing, and changing tenant expectations. The structural nature of this makes it more of a reset in motion rather than a temporary downturn. So next, we're going to dive a little bit deeper, looking at vacancy and absorption trends, as well as how we compare to some of our peer cities. So here, this chart's tracking vacancy over the last 12 years across 3 geographies, looking at the central business district, the downtown fringe, and the Pittsburgh metro as a whole. So the red line is the CBD, where we've seen the most significant increase in vacancy. In 2013, vacancy in the CBD was just under 10%, and today it's standing at 18.3%. Most of that increase occurred since 2020, with the steepest rise between 2022 and 24, reflecting continued tenant downsizing, space consolidation, and relocations into the surrounding submarkets. The blue line represents the downtown fringe, so that includes those adjacent areas like the Strip District, North Shore, and Lower Hill. Vacancy there has also increased. It's now at 12.9%, but the growth has been more moderate than in the core. This suggests some redistribution of tenants into nearby submarkets. And then finally, the yellow line shows the Pittsburgh metro as a whole. At 11.9%, it's remained the most consistent and stable of the 3, which this illustrates that the most pronounced impacts are concentrated in the CBD, while the broader regional office markets seen less disruption. So together, these trends reinforce that downtown Pittsburgh is experiencing the sharpest effects of the overall trend of decreasing office square footage, with the surrounding areas absorbing some of that shift. So now really digging into the CBD, this chart's tracking vacancy by building class since 2013, and this is using a combination of CBRE and CoStar data. This includes the quote unquote zombie leases, which are spaces that are still technically under lease, but are no longer actively being occupied. So in this case, Class A buildings are the top tier offices with the highest rents and the most modern amenities. Class B offers solid functional space at more moderate costs, while Class C represents older, more basic options at the lowest prices. For much of the past decade, Class B posted the highest vacancy, peaking above 20% in 2018. After 2022, however, the story has shifted. Class A, once among the lowest, has surged past 20% in 2023, and it's remained elevated. It's now at 20.5%. Class C has been even more volatile, spiking above 21%, while Class B has edged down slightly, but still remains high. Importantly, nearly 800,000 square feet of Class B is already earmarked for conversion projects, which should further reduce vacancy in that category moving forward. So a key question now is whether vacancy is beginning to level off or if further increases are ahead. But what's clear is that somewhat contrary to the initial flight to quality assumptions, Class A is under the most pressure and Class B is volatile but limited in its overall impact. The consistent rise across all classes is underscoring some of the price sensitivity driving today's market. So then looking at our net absorption by building class in the CBD, and this is looking specifically at properties 10,000 square feet and larger, as well as excluding FMB from Class A so that the results aren't skewed by that single large delivery. The trend is still clear. Absorption has been negative in recent years, with the sharpest declines concentrated in Class A. Since 2022, Class A has experienced the largest contractions, including a low point in 2024, where absorption fell close to negative 1 million square feet. This is in large part due to the fact that there is proportionally more square feet of Class A than B and C overall. Class A is 23 million square feet compared with a combined 9 million, or with a 9 million of Class B. And Class B and C have shown some smaller swings with some period of modest positive and then negative absorption, neither to the scale seen in Class A. So overall, the chart's really underscoring that the CBD has faced consistent challenges filling space with Class A out front. So how do we stack up compared to our peer cities? If you're looking at this chart places the Pittsburgh CBD in the context of our peer cities across the country, specifically using Q2 data from JLL. So this chart's looking at total vacancy. That's the combination of that kind of direct vacancy number along with our active subleasing spaces to kind of provide a more robust vacancy picture. Here, Pittsburgh's total vacancy is around 23.3%. Baltimore and Indianapolis show even higher rates, approaching or even exceeding 25%, while cities like Cincinnati and Detroit are somewhat lower, but only modestly. So the broader takeaway here is really that every city on this list is contending with elevated vacancy. This is a national downtown office trend, not just a challenge unique to Pittsburgh. So key takeaway 2 is that our office property reinvestment or reuse or use change is essential to stabilization. Peer city comparisons are showing us that downtown Pittsburgh's part of a national reset, and our ability to stabilize will depend on how we respond. Much of the office space in our core no longer aligns with what tenants are looking for, and waiting for demand to return to peak years is just not a strategy. Stabilization will require reinvestment and in some cases changes in use. Many legacy office properties, particularly those once considered premium Class A, are struggling because they lack the design, amenities, and qualities tenants are now expecting. Without strategic renovations, they'll continue to lose ground, and in other cases, full-scale conversion or adaptive reuse may be the best path forward. We already have examples of how reinvestment can make a difference. At One Oxford Center, new ownership is investing in amenities and repositioning the property, leading to more than 85,000 square feet of lease renewals in just the past quarter. It's a clear demonstration with the right improvements, buildings can remain competitive even in a challenging market. Additionally, downtown Pittsburgh's Fifth Avenue Place has held strong over the last 10 years. The property ownerships continue to invest in the building amenities, adding new retail to the ground floor, along with the creation of a new restaurant and patio space on Penn and Stanwix with hopes of a new tenant announcement soon. So this really leads to our next focus, which is tenant trends, to help inform where reinvestment and reuse might be best targeted. So here, looking at leasing activity, this chart's looking at tenant movements across the region over the last couple of years. This is, again, working with JLL data. And while the CBD is the only submarket with a net loss, it continues to be the hub of office activity. Nearly 65% of tenants, 47 in total, chose to stay in downtown. Another 8 tenants moved in. That means most downtown tenants remain committed to downtown, even more so than other submarkets. By contrast, the fringe has seen growth, but it's also seen more churn. While 16 tenants moved in and 7 were new to the market, 11 moved out, leaving only 10 that stayed. And that pattern's similar to other submarkets where growth has often been balanced by high turnover. While downtown is seeing some movement, downtown tenants continue to anchor the offices, the region's office market. And so these tenant movements can help explain what we're seeing in terms of building class decisions, as many firms aren't just changing location, they're also reassessing the quality and the type of space they need. More than half of tenants did upgrade their building class between 2023 and early 2024, showing continued demand for higher quality office space, even though a lot of these leases did include shrinking the footprint. And at the same time, vacancy in Class A remains elevated, underscoring that surplus of space in the CBD office market as tenants move up in class. Then kind of looking at this chart is tracking quarterly leasing activity in the CBD as well as the downtown fringe since 2018. So post-pandemic, the CBD really saw that noticeable dip in activity and a lot more volatility while the fringe submarkets outperformed for several years. But that gap has started to close more recently. In both Q1 and Q2 of 2025, the CBD actually outpaced the downtown fringe in leasing activity for the first time in several years. While it's far too early to call it rebound, it's definitely an encouraging shift to watch. So Now we really want to look at sort of who are our main tenants and where are they located. So this map's looking at the clustering of legal and business services across downtown Pittsburgh. The blue circles, those kind of the larger circles, the blue and yellow circles represent the kind of employee numbers. And then the blue pinpoints and the red pinpoints show those offices and are kind of scaled to size. And so what really immediately stands out is the strength of the legal sector as an anchor for downtown Pittsburgh's office market, with large concentrations along Grant Street near the courthouses and government buildings and in the Market Square area. These firms are arguably the most stabilizing sector for our office market. They occupy significant square footage, employ large numbers of employees, and they remain essential to downtown's daytime population. Business services, by contrast, are more widely distributed. While individual firms often have smaller footprints, their collective presence is broad and provides that critical support for the other professional services ecosystem, such as accounting, consulting, IT, and administrative functions that often frequently intersect with legal services. So we see considerable overlap between these two sectors. Many of downtown's largest buildings house both law firms and business services, creating professional service clusters that reinforce each other and drive demand for restaurants, retail, and other ground floor services. So a key takeaway here is that business and legal services co-location creates these dense hubs of employment that are vital to downtown's vibrancy, underscoring the importance of reinvesting in the buildings and public spaces where they cluster most strongly. So now I'd like to introduce Chris Smith, attorney with Meyer, Unkovic, and Scott, to share with us how they decided to move into new offices or relocate to new offices in the US Steel Tower, where they're going to be moving in December. Chris?
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it. Everyone, you can hear me okay, right, Kate?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks.
Great. Perfect. Thanks so much. So despite my constant effort in my life to be unique, based upon Kate's presentation, I'm not that unique. So yes, we're a law firm, Meyer Scott. We've been around for about 80 years, and I'm the managing partner here at Meyer Scott. And we are moving in December from the Oliver building, which we've been in since almost the late 80s. So that's a long time, to the US Steel building. We are, like Kate suggested, getting a little bit smaller in size. We were going from probably about 38,000 square feet down to about 32,000 square feet. A couple of the reasons for us to do that, obviously, you must have people working from home. That's not really what it is. It's really just kind of the evolving of technology and the way in which we sort of work, and the absence of needing to store as much paper and just the space that you need in order for an office for a professional at this stage, as opposed to the way it was 20 years ago. This is a significant long-term investment for Meyer Scott in the downtown office market, and not one that we took lightly. Obviously, we don't move very often. So when we were given the opportunity to sort of go out and look for a new space, we considered all options available, leaving the downtown area, considering some of the suburbs, maybe some of the stuff that's on the fringe that Kate referenced in the Strip District. And, we met with our partners, we met with the rest of our people here. We have about 56 lawyers, 100 people in total that kind of come to Meyer Scott on a regular basis. And we really determined that the downtown market was really the best place for us for a number of different factors. We've enjoyed our time in the downtown market since the late 80s, if not probably before that, which was before my time. And we're excited both about where downtown has been and where we think downtown is going. We recognize the evolution that's taking place in front of our very eyes, and we look at that as more of an opportunity as opposed to a negative. With that, we've enjoyed our time here in the Oliver building, and we've enjoyed our time in this sort of quadrant of the downtown area. Much like the city of Pittsburgh, neighborhoods are kind of very specific. So we were a little reluctant to move too far away. So moving up to the US Steel really worked well for all of our employees and the people that come to the office, because it's a familiar area. Obviously, the low-hanging fruit, the access to the courts, the transportation system, the ability to sort of draw talent from all areas in the city of Pittsburgh with natural sort of abilities to get in here, whether it be roadways or bus transportation, biking for some of those, with parking that's available. It was a nice bonus to have integral parking with the US Steel Tower. That's something that our employees would definitely enjoy. Additionally, with the T-stop that's there as well, that's kind of a nice perk. But the US Steel Tower also offered some other sort of unique things. This will be the first time we're able to be all on one floor in quite some time. I mean, with the floor plates that are available at US Steel Tower, with each one being almost an acre in size, we're able to really put all of our employees and all of our attorneys all on one floor, which is pretty exciting for us. We're also able to bring the file room more into the space as well, Right now, they're on a separate floor, all kind of by themselves and a little bit detached. Obviously, the file room is going to get a lot smaller as we move into the new sort of generation here of keeping paper at a little better rate. Additionally, the U.S. Steel Tower had the amenities that we kind of found very attractive in the essence. They have about 2 floors that designate tenant space that allow us to really kind of take advantage of those aspects of the building without having to build that space inside our space as well. So larger conference rooms, areas in which you can market to clients, and areas in which you can enjoy that space. That was a really kind of nice amenity that allowed you to sort of make your space a little bit more efficient while taking advantage of those things. And the downtown area as a whole, just the ability with other partners and other business partners, as Kate sort of highlighted, not that many people are leaving downtown. So we still market and we still do business with a lot of people who are in the downtown market. And that makes it really easy, just the convenience and the sort of ease in which you can meet with people, exchange papers, exchange documents, and just sort of generally market with each other, we found to be very advantageous. So those reasons, probably many others, we decided to stay, and we're excited about this move to US Steel. We're excited to start this next aspect of Meyer & Scott, and looking forward to sort of the changes that are coming.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's really great to kind of have someone actually put life to these trends. So I really appreciate you joining us today and kind of walking us through some of the decision-making process. And we're thrilled that you're staying in downtown. So thank you. Next, we're going to kind of look a little bit at the distribution of sort of professional development and construction services firms, design firms, architecture firms. So these are firms are kind of located a little bit more across the whole downtown, and rather than just sort of clustering kind of as intensely as the legal and business services. So many of the professionals in these firms work across the region. They interface with both public and private clients. And these are primarily headquarters or regional offices for engineering, construction, management firms, architecture, businesses that really can contribute to commercial as well as residential real estate development, transportation, infrastructure, and a lot more. So this sector may not have their name on the tops of buildings, but their presence is really essential to downtown's economy and the business ecosystem. And these companies also kind of bring long-term stability to the office market. And so next, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Glantz, Managing Partner of LGA Partners, a leader in aviation, education, healthcare, housing, retail, and workplace design, to share with us a little bit on how they decided to move into new offices at Gateway last year, and then to also walk us through a little bit of the visuals of their fantastic offices over at Gateway. So Jonathan, take us away.
Okay, thanks, Kate. And I hope you have the visuals because I don't. So hopefully this got sent over
I
to you.
do.
Okay, good. As Kate mentioned, Jonathan Glantz, Managing Partner, LGA Architects. LGA has been around for about 30 years. We started with our founding partner, Susan Lammy, over on the East End in Edgewood, in a small kind of ramshack, Class C- space, and have grown from the founding kind of a sole practitioner to over 100 employees, 35 architects, and 2 offices headquartered here in Pittsburgh and a satellite office in Cleveland. I think downtown, there are a lot of reasons, but we started looking for space in 2022. We were committed to being back to work. Our space, when we moved from the East End then to Uptown, we were there for 7 years and quickly ran out of room. And decided, where would we want to be? One of the things about downtown in 2022 was opportunity. As architects, we're always thinking about what the future looks like. We know cities, in 2022, 2021 was not the greatest time to be in downtown Pittsburgh at that time. We were confident that downtown that was the low point, the nadir, and that we'd be moving forward in a positive trend. And we wanted to take advantage of the opportunities that were afforded us then. Rents were cheaper and landlords were interested in doing deals, and we're not attorneys, so we don't make quite as much money as those guys. So price was really important to us. And also we needed the space to be really great space. So we needed to spend quite a bit of money on the build out. And so because of that, we really saw an opportunity with downtown, but that, frankly, was a once in a lifetime, once in a generation opportunity. Downtown rates were never going to be cheaper than they were in 2022. And now that we've been here 2 years almost, We feel like that's been an excellent payoff. The other thing that we were really liked about downtown, and Chris sort of touched on this before, is it's central, but Pittsburgh's unique, and we don't really have a loop road in the way places like a highway like Columbus or DC have, that really create development along kind of those perimeter roads, the loop roads. We don't have that. All of our highways drive toward the center. And we have employees coming from the four corners of Western Pennsylvania. So pick a fringe, or even worse, a suburb, and you're bound to make it very inconvenient for 70% of your workforce. We're 4 days back in the office, and frankly, more like 4.5. We have flex time more than we have a work from home policy. So again, the kind of work that we do is very collaborative and interactive, requiring, frankly, us to be in the office. And we found that, again, to be really important with downtown, to have that central location, multiple modes of transportation, including public transportation, and also, frankly, integral parking. If you want to know the difference between a Class A building that's successful downtown and one that's struggling, I'll bet you $5 integral parking is one of the key differentiators. All the other amenities are important for sure, but integral parking is key. So that's what attracted us to downtown. What attracted us specifically to Gateway neighborhood was a couple of things. One, Gateway 4, the building we're in, the footprint was really attractive to us. It was a 20,000 square foot footprint, about 220,000 square feet tower. That's a really good right size for a building. It's not too big, it's not too small. 20,000 feet also worked out really well for getting us all on one floor, something we also didn't have in our former space when we were in Uptown, and before that in the East End. We were on multiple floors. We really wanted to be in a single floor with a open, collaborative space where we could all work together. Kate mentioned our different markets that we work in. There's disparate as aviation and retail, healthcare, and workplace. And sometimes those groups don't get a chance to work together on a day-to-day basis. So being all in one contiguous space, largely column-free, was important to us. The views, this is another, I think, key differentiator between Class A buildings that are successful and those that are struggling. Those that have contiguous glass at the perimeter, lots of natural light, and not super deep floor plates are very attractive to folks right now. Again, the flight to quality is a thing that people are talking a lot about, but I think it's a very specific quality that folks are looking for, that we try to integrate into our design. And so, yeah, also the neighborhood being close to Market Square, the really wonderful parks and green space that connect the different buildings at Gateway, and frankly, the ease in and out from Parkway access and other modes of transportation, shave 10, 15 minutes off of commutes. So lots of reasons, and we're really happy with our decision. I know a lot of our clients are struggling with, should we stay in downtown? Should we move? We're afraid if we move to downtown or don't move out of downtown, we'll lose staff. We didn't do that. We didn't lose anybody. And in fact, we've had great success in retention and with attracting talent, being in the downtown environment. It's been great for us.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate the absolutely beautiful photos you shared with us. Your space is incredible. And we're thrilled that you have really made this commitment to downtown, and that the timing and the pricing kind of worked out, that you could really do this beautiful build out, and create such a lasting kind of impact in the space. So thank you. And thank you for joining us again.
You bet, Kate. Thanks.
And so kind of rounding out this section, looking at kind of tenants and their impact, sector scale and amenities are really kind of helping to drive leasing. Professional services like legal, finance, business services, and professionals supporting our development and construction industry, they all remain downtown anchors. While some sectors with smaller footprints or more remote friendly models may contribute less to the overall market demand. understanding which industries are most committed to downtown, and then aligning strategies to support them and build on that competitive advantage is really essential. Scale matters too. Larger tenants continue to reassess their footprint, often reducing space significantly at renewal. At the same time, small and mid-sized tenants provide that steady activity, filling spaces more consistently, even if at smaller square footages. And then amenities really do remain a critical driver, and not just the in-building amenities, as both of our kind of guest speakers spoke to, but proximity to courts, government agencies, transit, public spaces, small businesses, clients and peers, as well as being at a central location for employees to reach. These are all amenities that underscore downtown's unique standing in as the region center of business. So with that, Aaron's going to kind of walk us through some of the next steps before we get to our Q&A.
Great, thanks, Kate. Well, we know this has been a lot of information, and we are recording this meeting, so you can expect it to be available if you'd like to watch it again with a special eye on particular parts, or share it with colleagues. But I hope you're encouraged as we are, with some of the really positive occupancy and leasing trends that we've started to see this year. Now, before we get into the Q&A, let's just talk about some next steps that we here at PDP are thinking about and looking for your collaboration on.
I'm just going to kind of walk us through the last few slides. Unfortunately, we're having some ongoing Zoom hiccups, but if you are a building owner and you've got tenants who are on the fence, maybe they're weighing renewals, they're exploring relocations, or they're sort of unsure about what to do in the future, we really want to be able to talk to them. If you're the head of a company and you're wondering whether the future of your company is in downtown, we would love to talk with you. We're happy to meet and listen, answer questions, share what's happening downtown, and then depending on needs and priorities, we can bring representatives from local governments, partners, help address specific issues, whether that might be permitting, public safety, transit, workforce, really just about anything. So, please try to think of us as a retention resource. We want to support businesses in downtown. So when it comes time to decide if you want to stay in downtown or not, the answer becomes an obvious yes. Additionally, if you're a broker recruiting non-traditional users for office space, we're also here to support those efforts. We're, whether that's providing market data, as well as like potential grant, or, walking through financing opportunities, please reach out, let us know. And then, if you are a property owner interested in advancing an office to residential conversion project, we're here to also support you. We can, again, provide additional market data. We can help you explore financing opportunities. We have written many letters of support for projects, because really increasing our residential population is a key ingredient to downtown's transformation. And it's really critical to arrive at that optimal commercial real estate mix. We have a number of residential projects and conversions in the pipeline. There's currently 1,062 residential units already in the pipeline for delivery to market over the next 3 years. And 79% of those are former office space, about 840 units. And we have been happy to support these in a variety of ways, both large and small, from support letters to direct facade grants and that sort of thing. And then yesterday we released some new Q3 data on our downtown activity dashboard, showing residential occupancy in downtown now stands at 93.7%. That's up from 91.2% in Q2. It's really further reinforcing the demand for residential is strong and it's growing. The residential market is going to be our next focus for the Q4 State of Downtown, probably around early November. So please stay tuned for that one. Hopefully we don't lose internet while we're presenting. And you will receive plenty of notice well in advance before that one. And so with that, we would really like to try to open it up to Q&A. I'm going to see if we can pull up any of the questions and sort of answer them as they came in. I'm not sure if we may have lost some of them in the shuffle. So Jeremy, are you on?
I am on. I cannot see those questions. I do recall one of them that came in was a question about the YWCA building at the corner of Wood Street and 4th Avenue, and if there's any updates on that. I do know that there are some discussions occurring about the redevelopment of this building and the use of a residential tower in that space. There have been discussions with local and state government about this project and trying to ensure that that RCAP commitment that was in place with the previous developer is still an option. And I do hope that we will have some positive news on that front coming out in the next couple of months. Kate, can you see other questions, or are they lost?
I unfortunately can't see what questions were asked previous to us kind of crashing. So if folks still have questions, if you could pop them in the chat so we can kind of answer them. Or you're also welcome to email us with any additional questions.
There was one question I recall about asking whether downtown is a tax corridor and whether this geography was being considered for any sort of tax corridor. So there is no current proposal or anything under consideration for any additional, tax layer in this geography. That is not the case. But what I guess one thing that is important to really underscore here is that, downtown is a very critical tax corridor for, local tax revenue. It's historically been around 20% of local property tax revenue, and it's over 90% of the city's parking tax revenue. So, in that respect, I mean, it really is a tax generator for the city and the region.
Thanks, Aaron. I do know there was an additional question about tax collection in general when a building is transferred from a commercial office building to a living or a residential building. I think generally speaking, that's still considered a commercial building, but the value is often less. So you will see a decrease in the overall value of the building because commercial office tends to pay more in rent, and that rent roll helps establish value. But it's obviously more than the building going empty. So I think that answers Julia's question. And then there's an additional question here. Why is play at 15% in Aaron's pie chart on the optimal if the goal is to increase residential by 21%? It seems like both should go up. I think, Aaron, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, sure. So the reason is because right now we, with retail vacancy, we have, I think it's safe to say, a surplus of retail square footage. Now, there is a disproportionate amount of square footage available that's in singular large footprint spaces. So I think at our Q2 session there, we discussed, future strategies around like partitioning that may be necessary of those spaces. But the point being that we currently have a significant amount of retail square footage, and then additional play space includes things like, nonprofit uses and theaters. So for the purpose of this analysis and backing the amount of square footage that could feasibly be converted to residential into the total square footage of downtown, we just determined that it made the most sense to leave the amount of play as is.
Thanks, Aaron. Next question is going back to our panelists, and getting them to expand a bit more on transportation and integral parking, as it influenced your decision-making and where your offices would be located. I don't know if either of them are still available to answer that question. So I'll pause for a second and see if one of them can jump on. If not,
I am. It's Jonathan. I can talk about that, Jeremy. Yeah, I mean, 100 employees, we probably have of them 30 different ways they get to the office. We have people who bike, we have people who drive, we have people who carpool, we have people who drive and then catch the T. You know, they're on the north side and then come over on the T. We have people take buses. It really is a planes, trains, and automobile kind of approach. That diversity of transportation, integral parking is just one piece of that. But for some, having integral parking convenient, safe, and for some folks, in and out privileges are necessary. They're taking meetings in other parts of the city or lugging big, heavy, our interior designers are lugging big, heavy samples and tile samples and carpet samples. So I would say it's not the only factor. It is a key factor. And unlike, say, a suburban market where there's really just one way to get there, car, occasionally bus, but generally car, the diverse options for folks helped with retention and recruitment.
thanks, Jonathan.
Sure.
From my standpoint, Chris Smith, I would just echo what Jonathan said. It's a perk. It's not the determining factor. It was a nice bonus and something that you can tell the employees that you have, and there'll be a time where it's great. But the amount of parking that was downtown, that's in the surrounding area, and the number of different ways to get to our offices, there's plenty of sort of real solutions there. That this was just another perk. That's all.
Yep.
And I think for us, we had plentiful parking in our former space. So setting expectations of being able to provide integral parking if they wanted it, if employees wanted it, was important. You know, staff never wants to see a perk or benefit removed. So if you had it before, you better be able to provide it again.
Sure. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. An additional question here. The downsizing of businesses in downtown to smaller spaces. Are there other plans to convert those larger office spaces into other uses outside of residential? And I think, yes, there are definitely discussions about that. I think one question is what other types of uses are in demand. Of course, you can't talk about Pittsburgh and our industries without talking about education. And so we've talked a lot to Point Park University about their growth plans. I think they're getting ready to see one of their largest freshman classes in recent history, which is an important component to downtown Pittsburgh. There's also discussions about the potential for our educational partners in Oakland and their potential growth opportunities. And when would it make sense for them to look at expanding into downtown is a question that I think we're very interested in discussing and seeing, you know, what potential uses could there be in downtown that would help them provide a better learning environment for their students, realizing that Oakland's relatively landlocked and grown significantly over the last few years. This kind of leads into an additional question about the possibility of BNY Tower being deconstructed. You may have seen recent press coverage and some opinion pieces on the BNY Mellon Tower. I do think that kind of everything's at play. Obviously, reusing a building is going to be much more cost effective than deconstruction. And I think the question around deconstruction is likely, who would pay for that? I have heard estimates of $8 to $12 million to bring that building down. And, you know, what would you use that space for that would warrant the expense of demolition of that space? So, you know, I would love to see university uses in that space. I think it could make a ton of sense from a variety of perspectives. But that's going to be a conversation that continues with our government officials and the ownership group out of New York on kind of the future of that building. Other question was sharing discussions on the collaboration with city officials to ensure that folks continue to feel safe in downtown. That is, I think, arguably the most important discussion that we have on a regular basis with our city, county, public-private partners about how we ensure that downtown remains a safe space. There was the unfortunate incident this past week in the cultural district. There's been a lot of discussions about what happened there and how do we ensure it doesn't happen again. We continue to see a significant police presence in downtown with the public safety center, but we know it's not enough. We are talking with service providers to help individuals that are experiencing homelessness or have substance abuse issues, and we know that we have to continue to do more. We want to see more police on the streets. We want to see more outreach workers on the street. We want to see, continued presence of our on-street services, our clean and outreach teams out there. And we also want to do that in a coordinated fashion with the hundreds of security staff and personnel that are employed by private businesses and property owners here in downtown Pittsburgh. So it's certainly something that's top of mind for us. And efforts that we will continue to kind of push on our end. Another question here: with the drastic decline in population after standard work hours, what are some strategies to keep consistent use of the city through all days of the evening and night hours? I think this is a question that a lot of cities are struggling with right now. One could argue that downtowns really across the board are over retailed. There's just not enough demand, specifically when you look at would be decreased office use and an increase in online purchasing. There's just not enough demand for the amount of retail space that is available to cities, generally speaking. And so, what do you do with those spaces? Do you encourage other uses in those? Do you see more office go into ground floor space? Do you see, the potential for residential uses in that, which is not something that historically we've seen in Pittsburgh, but you do see it in some other markets. And I think those are discussions that we're going to have to continue to have, because that activation and utilization of those ground floor spaces is really integral to your perception of safety and the impact that it has on your willingness to walk down streets and public spaces. You want kind of active uses. You want the lights on. You want it to feel welcoming and inviting, and certainly vacant or underutilized ground floor spaces do not provide that opportunity.
Hey, Jeremy. Jeremy,
yes.
It's Jonathan. Do you mind if I just jump in for a sec?
Please, no.
Because I'm going to. Yeah, I think so. Downtown Pittsburgh is a unique opportunity. Historically, our kind of ratio of business to housing has always leaned heavily toward business use compared to other cities our size. Getting more and diverse kind of housing options downtown will start to also create demand for more retail. You get that 18-hour city, that 24-hour city rather than 9 to 5, and different kinds of retails to accommodate retail options to accommodate people who live here, whether it's a grocery store or other kind of convenience things like Target, frankly, which is been a great amenity for downtown. And then I guess, the other thing to think about is, I lost my train of thought, but I guess, seeing more housing is really important. I think that'll go a long way to helping retail in the city.
Thanks, Jonathan. No, it's really valuable insight. I think we have cleared out our Q&A. Let me go back and see if there's any additions. Are there efforts to attract more restaurants, whether fast food or quick service, for downtown workers? Kate, Aaron, either of you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I can kind of jump in there. I mean, we definitely work very closely with our property owners and brokers on kind of tenant recruitment for the retail spaces. And then especially we have some retail programs, grant programs to assist with new businesses opening in downtown, whether it's them relocating from another neighborhood or opening a first location or expanding. And so we have the Downtown Rent Abatement Program, which is a grant funded program to help pay some of the about 50% of the first year's rent, capped at $24,000 a year for a multi-year lease. And so these are some of the programs that we can utilize to encourage restaurants and other retailers to take some of the ground floor spaces in downtown and really invest long-term in downtown. We've also done a variety of different pop-up retail programs, Project Pop-Up being the main one, as well as sort of some art activations and things like that. But the Downtown Rent Abatement Program is really designed for some of those long-term investments in these retail spaces, and to kind of for us to be able to provide both sort of recruitment and then some tools to sort of help folks get started in downtown. And then we also work closely with the Downtown Neighbors Alliance on additional tenant recruitments. And I know they've also been doing kind of targeted efforts in both restaurant as well as retail. And then also, what Jonathan said is, as we increase the residential population, as I mentioned earlier, we have about 1,000 residential units in the pipeline over the next 3 years. As we continue to increase that residential density, one that helps kind of keep the city active and engaged after the kind of business hours, because if the folks are living down here, they're going to shop and eat down here. And then it really helps kind of as we grow that population, it helps our retail sector thrive. And then we target retail really specific to what residents are going to need rather than just what office workers or employees are going to need.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. One question that just popped up was, does the NFL draft coming offer any additional financial supports for growth in downtown? I believe there are some potential opportunities there. It's a 3-day event, so it's not going to drastically change the overall economy of downtown Pittsburgh, but it's certainly going to be an opportunity to kind of put our city on the on the main stage nationally, or at least for those folks who follow football. And so a great thing for the city. We are seeing some funding opportunities for some potential storefront activation work, similar to what Kate just mentioned. So you're going to see a continuation of our rent abatement program, some potential pop-up opportunities, some public art opportunities. But I'm not sure that I see any large scale financial supports. That said, if there are specific projects that that folks want to look at and feel that we might be able to help with some connection points, we're happy to do so. With public and private sector contacts, just trying to get projects in front of folks who have influence and potential investment opportunities is super important to us. So we definitely want to hear about those and see how we might be able to assist. I think we've hit on. Now.
Yeah, I would say for anyone who is still on here, if you do have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email. It's back up on your screen at cirvin@downtownpittsburgh.com or Aaron Asukanik at downtownpittsburgh.com. We're both available to answer any additional kind of specific questions related to this presentation, or if you have kind of other broader questions related to the state of downtown that this sort of brought up, please feel free to reach out to us. Or, if you are one of the brokers, property owners, or businesses that I mentioned kind of previously, whether you're considering, a lease renewal or any of these other types of things, please reach out to us and we can kind of discuss options and opportunities.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Please be in touch with anything that you feel like we can help with, and we will circle back with you all, kind of recapping this meeting, and make sure to invite you to our Q4. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day.